All right, here we are, hour number 2 on a Tuesday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and this time of the week can mean only one thing. ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky joining us, and Dan's appearance on One Bills Live is presented by Caesars Sportsbook, an official mobile sports betting partner of the Buffalo Bills. And Dan, Steve, and I have been knocking this around for probably the last day or so in the wake of the humbling defeat at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens. We've described their offense in this league as somewhat of an outlier. And knowing that, we're wondering if, down the line, playoffs perhaps, if the Bills see this team again, are they going to have to think outside the box in terms of a defensive approach, whether it's 50 front, 60 front, something out of the ordinary, a Bill Belichick schemed plan for a given opponent in a given week to make hay against that group?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely probably situations where that becomes a little bit more into play. I think that you have to give credit in this situation to Baltimore and the way that they went about their plan. There is the reality, and we've kind of talked about this, is some of those starting defensive players. I think we've mentioned how some of those guys have just stepped in and seamlessly played high level football and winning football. I think that showed up a little bit, a Taron not being there, a Bernard not being there, certainly Milano, that was a part of that. I think the other part is maybe, this is a defense that is so one, eyes based because it's a zone defense, and then two, aggressive because, they're going on their first reaction to things. And I think Baltimore took advantage of that. And so I'm sure that if it came down the road that they would have to see Baltimore again, there would be some maybe like structural changes, but a little bit more, I liken it to, when teams play Miami, and when you guys play a Miami or a San Francisco, defenses try to sit at a certain location and don't move till the ball actually kind of gets committed via run or pass. Buffalo kind of sat to start at their normal landmarks and reacted to things and then had to kind of secondary adjust back to the ball. And that's why there were so many big plays early on in the game.
Do you think the Ravens, I was making this point yesterday in the Kansas City game early in the season, they threw the ball 30 or 41 times. In the next game against the Raiders, they threw it 34 times. And then the last two games, 15 times at Dallas and 19 times against the Bills. I mean, if it almost seems counterintuitive that you're defensive in a league that's a throwing league, that's exactly what you want to force the Baltimore Ravens to do, is throw it.
Yeah, well, the fear is Lamar is obviously such a good thrower, and then he's so dynamic if things break down. So, there's a reality that maybe the pass catching weapons that he has aren't elite. So there's a part we'll throw it. I think, the 15 and 19 probably have a little bit to do with them being up at half by so much in both of those last two wins that they've gotten. So this is a good offense. Their offensive line, I don't think is what it has been in the past. Certainly I've played better in the past 2 weeks, but I don't think it's what they've been in the past. Their pass catching threat really is Zay. Bateman's good, but not really someone that you're going to sit there and game plan around. And they haven't gotten either of those tight ends really going in the pass game. Justice Hill is probably the biggest, with some of the matchups that he presents out in space, the biggest threat. So it's a good offense. No one's surprised by that. You're going to have to, at some point, make, in one way, them one-dimensional. I think who you are defensively is probably the better answer of which one dimension that is.
All right, flipping it forward to the Texans. Their offense, I think a lot of people thought was going to be high-flying, points all over the place, and here we are in Week 5, and the Texans aren't even averaging 20 points a game. How much do you attribute that to the fact that their top two running backs have been injured and they haven't been able to strike a balance, perhaps, with their offensive approach every week? And how much do you see other factors at work there?
Yeah, they can't pass protect. Their drop back pass protection is poor. It has been all year. Their record is really about CJ. CJ's been remarkable and making plays with his feet and really on third down, which was the case last year. But Now, they ran the ball really well in week one and haven't since then. I think that has a little bit to do with Mixon not being there, but their play action pass game protection is still fine. But when they got to drop back and just in obvious pass situations, you can get after this offensive line. And if Buffalo is going to play well enough and win, it'll be because that they get them into obvious passing situations that they're not able to use the play action, and then that pass rush gets going. So the big challenge, I guess, that is maybe a different challenge than it was last year, is CJ's making a lot of plays with his legs, either extending plays or getting out of bad and becoming a runner. More often, it's extending plays and creating big throws. So that's going to be the challenge, is if they can start to win in some of those pass rushes, being really disciplined, because that's a different part of his game this year than it was last.
They played the Indianapolis Colts, the Chicago Bears, Jacksonville. Now they lost to Minnesota. It's early, I know. And is this a team good enough for a first place schedule like they're trying to play this year? Last year they were the fourth place schedule. Has the strength of their schedule going to catch up with them? Because the Colts, the Bears, the Jaguars, who were winless, not much was expected of those teams. How much has Houston been tested?
Not much. I mean, the Minnesota game, and they got boat raced in the Minnesota game. I think that the defense is a good unit. It really is. I think they got a really good secondary. They fly to the football. Now, if you can get into some formations that they get predictable, because it's not an overly creative defense under D'Amico, you can get them into some predictable alignments. You can take advantage of it. That's what Kevin O'Connell did when Minnesota had such success against them. And then this is a football team, so 2 years in a row now offensively, they have struggled to have any type of positive run on early downs. But they still, to their identity, Bobby Slowick, their play caller, they want to call them. You win that down, you got a really good chance to slow them down. Now, Nico Collins is no question become one of the elite receivers in the NFL. So the big thing is, this is a really good football team. It's really talented. They got a quarterback that you can put in the conversation with some of the best in the NFL. There's absolutely no question about that. But if you can win early downs against them, you start to play to a strength defensively.
And then as far as their back end on defense, I know they have a lot of talented high draft choices, but still young. I mean, Lassiter, rookie, Bullock, rookie at free safety. And I know those guys are playmakers and have made plays already, but I'm just wondering about them in coverage against a guy with an arm like Allen. You take chances, you could get burned.
Yeah, they got really good ball skills, both of those guys.
Yeah.
Lassiter and Stain got really good ball skills. So, this is a game, if you're Buffalo offensively, I don't live throwing the ball to the perimeter that much. I think you live throwing the ball. If you're going to, push the ball downfield, I think you're taking shots kind of at the hashes, with some big crossers. I don't think you're trying to test these corners and their ball skills that much when you don't have someone on the outside that has elite ball skills. This is a football team that what you have to do against Houston is they are an ultra aggressive linebacker unit. I mean, they are downhill. You have to use that against them. So, some of the play actions that maybe aren't really long and developing play actions, but ones that are quicker hitting, that's one thing you got to do. You got to move the pocket on them because ultra, it's almost like Buffalo, like ultra aggressive. You got to get them flowing one way and get back across the other way. I don't see a ton of opportunities that is straight drop back, pushing the ball to the perimeter. Now, double moves for sure, but you got to call them and hit them at the right moments, obviously. But this is a really good. This defense doesn't have a flaw, and their pass rush, man. If they get their pass rush going with Danielle Hunter, and it is a big time problem.
Give us a little insight as how the Bills. We talk to you every week. You've watched the Bills go 3-0, and then they had this game last night or 2 nights ago in Baltimore. Give us an insight as to what you think their mindset should be going into a game like Houston after what happened to them on Sunday night. and it's amazing too. Josh hasn't thrown an interception this year. They got 2 forced fumbles and lost fumbles. Turned it over only twice offensively through 4 games, which, in years past would never have happened. 3-1, Josh playing the way he's playing. What's your advice to a Bills team headed into Houston?
Yeah, I think you're coming off of a loss where you didn't play well. You didn't do anything to stay on the field offensively. And I think, if you're Josh in the offense, what you take away is, you got caught trying to maybe get too cute and do too much, and you assumed some things that you thought the defense would do. And so you kind of reset in regards to that, play call wise and operation wise, but you're still 3-1 and you've been the hottest offense in the NFL for the most part. And then defensively, you don't have to try to pretend what happened on Sunday night didn't. I mean, I would imagine that Houston tries to put some of their bigger tight ends on the field. They have a young man out of Ohio State, Cade Stover, and try to run the football at you a little bit and see if you can handle that and really work the play action game, because that's their beauty. And so I think learning from some of the things that were exposed on Sunday night, but you're a 3-1 football team, and you're in October every month. This organization, this football team knows every month that you get into the season, the game becomes a little bit more meaningful. Both these teams have visions of being the 1 seed in the AFC playoffs. This game is obviously going to matter towards that. So, making sure, I think you got to get back to getting rhythm and sustained drives on offense is a big part of that.
And then just up front, the pass rush was non-existent for the Bills last week, primarily because there weren't a lot of down and distance opportunities that lent themselves to a pass rush. But how do you look at their front 7 play coming out of last week? I mean, Balin Spector after the game pretty much said there were times where I didn't get check pre-snap communication to everybody that I needed to, and that kind of showed up at times. But that was really the first time the line of scrimmage battle was lost by the Bills in this last game on both sides of the ball. How do you kind of recapture your strength in that area to kind of control how things go down and distance-wise?
Yeah, I think, the emphasis of examples when you've done it right and the emphasis of examples when you've done it poorly, and why. If it was a communication, if it was a misalignment, handling some pre-snap looks. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is figuring out why. And then, kind of like I mentioned this, if you go back and watch that Baltimore game, Baltimore, all they did was try to create space and get you to go to it and then take advantage of it. And that's why you saw like Lamar pump the draw. If you watch that, Lamar pumps the draw, the 3 second-level defenders just go flying laterally. And then the linemen are 8 yards downfield making contact. 3 of them, not all 3 of those guys should be flying that way to the football. Or when, they motion the back in a 2-by-2 to the field and Lamar gets the ball, and both the middle backer and the nickel go fly into the motion, and no one's, there was definitely moments when their numbers. So I just think like reassessing all that stuff and how it's going to be handled, because the teams are going to present them, certainly Houston, with it again, and just really having clarity of the responsibilities of all that. I think a lot of it was just getting misaligned pre-snap and then overly aggressive post.
Give us some ideas. Now that the week number 4 is under our belts, any surprises that continue to be surprises? I mean, we're a month into this, and it's week 5 already.
Yeah.
And I know if you're like us, I mean, we're astonished every year at how fast this season slides by. We're 4.5 weeks into this.
Quarter season.
What's
sure.
catching your eye? A lot have been said about the fact that nobody's thrown for very many yards this year. The yards are way down. Touchdowns are a little bit. Throwing touchdowns are down a little bit. Anything grab you?
Yeah, the quarterback in Kansas City and the quarterback in Buffalo are the reasons why. They're too good of players. That's defenses don't want to give them a ton of chances. I think, I'd say this, Steve. We're going to dive into this a little bit more in NFL Live probably in the next couple of weeks when we get a little bit more data. But I told our producer a week ago, watch the teams offensively that are the most efficient teams on first down. We're kind of back to an era where you were playing a little bit. Like, you got to be really efficient on first down right now. The teams that will be the teams that matter in December and into January on first down. Offenses that can do either and be good and efficient at them. Because here's the thing, third down offenses right now, not all of them, but most of them stink. And in my opinion, it's because the reason why the Baltimore Ravens defensive scheme is running ravage in the NFL right now is because offensive lines really struggle with handling pressures and quarterbacks really struggle with like diagnosing and communicating in it. So I think that'll be a big thing storyline as the season gets going, is what teams offensively are really good on first downs and not putting themselves into those really bad third down situations.
Last one for me, Dan. If you could just take a brief look at the division here, AFC East.
Yeah.
Obviously, Miami's got a world of problems because of their quarterback position, and Mike McDaniel's going to have to figure out some kind of solutions to at least be functional and then competitive.
It's a 2-team race.
Yeah. Jets, yes, they have the horses, but it seems like they're not all hitched up to the same wagon right now. How do you view? I mean, look, Denver's a tough defense. I'll give them that. But how do you explain some of the disconnect that seems to still exist, particularly in their passing game?
Yeah, I mean, so in their last 3 weeks, there's been improvement. Week 1, was, I think, just a tough draw for New York. I think, last week, the weather did not help. That was a game where it was pouring rain. Both offenses struggled to throw it. They've got to figure out, who they want to be when it comes to getting the ball to Garrett Wilson or not. He's their primary pass catcher. Aaron definitely has a better, at least, connection with Allen Lazard right now. I still believe that they're going to do everything they can to get Devontae Adams at some point over the next a month of football. I think that the football team needs that other perimeter player. They were really aggressive to start that game offensively. I don't think that's who they are. I think that they're an offense that really wants to give the quarterback the keys at every snap. And so I'm not overly concerned about the Jets offense, but I do think if they get Devontae, it becomes a different animal.
Dan, thanks, man. It's great to see you again. Thanks for joining us again this week.
Thanks, guys.